Howdy folks. So in my previous video you would have seen the teardown of this Fiio A3 portable headphone amplifier, and I went over what was in here, and I noted that of course they've got two op amps. One is for voltage gain and one of them is for current amplification, and I noticed that this thing has a 10 volt supply, plus and minus 5 volt supply, and you know, if I had to have a complaint about this, I mean, it's a great product, but I have this complaint with a lot of audio stuff, in that I don't think the sound stage is as wide as it could be, and it sounds narrow to me. And I've had this problem on a lot of other, I call it a problem, but I've noticed this characteristic, I guess is the better way to put it, on a lot of DACs and other assorted stuff. And I have a particular op amp that I like to use as an IV converter, because it has a really good, really wide soundstage, and it's this part, the Texas Instruments LME 49720. This is a really nice audio op amp, and I've used it in a bunch of other devices. And so this thing, of course, it's got the analog devices part as its current amplifier, and I'd love to know what happens, how this thing changes in sound when I replace it with this TI part. Now, there are a few things that are going to get better, and there's a few things that are probably going to get worse. Technically speaking, this has better distortion figures, or lower distortion figures, and lower noise than this part here. However, the one big thing I'm going to be losing is going to be output power, because this is a rail-to-rail op amp, and this is not a rail-to-rail op amp. So this thing, the data sheet says, and also the spec sheet for this whole amp says, it can do about 8.5 volts peak-to-peak swing on the output. And if you look at the data sheet for this thing into a 600 ohm load, this thing can do about 6.5 volts with a 10 volt supply. So we're losing about 2 volts of output swing with this amplifier chip. But it all comes down to, what does it have to output for it to do what I need it to do, right? And so if it's still perfectly loud enough with this chip, then even though it's not as loud as this chip, it doesn't really matter. It still does what I want it to do. And if this sounds better, then it's ultimately a worthwhile modification. And the other things that's going to change, of course, this thing I think has a higher quiescent current than this does. So technically speaking, it's going to get a little warmer, and the battery's not going to last as long. But again, these are all sort of marginal things that are just, they come with the, they come with putting in a chip in like this. So I'm just going to, I've taken a listen to what this sounds like. I'm going to just take this chip out, replace it with one of these. I'm not going to replace both of them. The voltage amplifier they've got in here is really nice. I'm not going to bother to change it, but the current one I am going to change. And I'm going to give it another listen, and I'm going to see how well this circuit does with a different chip in. And if it sounds like shit, then I'll just put the old one back. But thought it might as well be a worthwhile experiment while I've got the thing open. So let me solder that in, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so let's fast forward a few hours. So I replaced one of the chips, and then I kind of looked at the specs for the OPA chip, and I actually decided, well, I've got two of these things in stock. Let's just change both chips, because might as well. It's a better, I mean, the LME op amp that I have is better than this one, so might as well do that. And things still sounded, it didn't get any better, and this didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I was doing some output testing, and then I discovered the fault, because I can't believe I didn't discover this earlier. The output was mono. Yeah, like if you sent something into just the left or the right channel, it would come out of both channels on the other side. And I swapped these back to the originals, and it was still there. So I believe that, I don't think I did anything when I changed these op amps. I was very careful. And somehow I think the reason why this thing didn't sound as good is because it was running mono, and I didn't even notice it at first. And so, yeah, that was a little dumb of me. And so then I went on a fault-finding mission for about 2 hours to try and figure out what was going on, because the input wasn't shorted and the output wasn't shorted, but the signal was very clearly getting into the amplifiers that was the same, and kind of didn't cross my mind for the first like hour. But it's the pot. The pot is shorted in this, which is really disappointing. And I kind of concluded that by desoldering one of the leads. So these two big pads here are the positive rail, and then there's ground, and then these two smaller pads just on either side, those are the wipers. So this is the left wiper, this is the right wiper. I think either that or that's the other way around. And so you can see I've just cleared the solder bridge between the daughter board that the pot is on and the pad here. And on the board, these two pads are not shorted, but between this pad and the one on the daughter board, they are shorted. So the left and right channels in this pot are shorted together. So, fuck. Because I, of course, can't return this now. I can't exchange this because I've opened it and I've modified it. And the sale is over, so this thing is now ridiculously expensive again. So I think I'm going to have to find a source for a potentiometer of this type, of this size. Maybe I can get a part number off of it. Getting this out is going to be a complete bitch because I tried to get this plastic frame off earlier off camera, and you could take the knob off, which is glued on. You can see it kind of there. You got to take this ring off, and still that's not enough, because if you try to take this off, this little plastic where the screw goes in to hold this board on won't clear this cap. So you can't just slide it out. The way I think they do this is they install the pot, and then they put the board on, and then they solder them together. So I have to desolder this pot and then take the board out and then take the pot out separately, because as far as I can tell, you cannot get the board and pot assembly out of this plastic frame as one piece. There's also this little like metal shielding piece here, which is soldered into this, which goes over the shaft. You have to remove that as well. So that you can clearly tell that this stuff is all soldered by hand after they assemble this. So I'm going to take this pot out of here, or try to, and see if I can find any markings on it. I also might just bang the shit out of the pot and see if it's just something that's, like a whisker or something inside I can clear. But yeah, well, yeah, you live and you learn. Test things before you take them apart. Okay, so I've got the pot out, which was incredibly difficult because the way that they solder this on the top, you'd think that, they just solder on the top after they assemble it into this frame, but you'll notice that there's actually solder on the other side of the board on just 3 of the pads. So I don't really know why they've doubled up on that, but the problem is the solder on the back. Once I wicked off all the stuff on the other side, I couldn't get to these pads because with the plastic and the pot and everything, you can't get an iron in there, and of course hot air is just going to melt this. So I ended up having to actually slide it out of here, which I'm really surprised this plastic did not break, because I had to stretch it real far to get these things out, and the threading on the pot would get stuck on this, and it's designed to go together and never come apart again. But I'm gonna have to somehow get this back together because I actually found the problem. So the pot, of course, this pot has a switch in it, so you've got the 2 contacts at the back, and then you've got 2 independent wipers here. So you're going to have basically the 2 signal on these here. You can see these 2 are common together, so that would be your ground reference, and then the 2 middle ones are the wipers. And so of course these 2 are shorted, and these 2 are shorted, and these 2 are shorted, and that doesn't make sense. And only under the microscope could I see there was actually a tiny solder bridge between the 2 input pins on here. So I've reflowed this, and now there is no bridge, and these 2 are 40 kiloohms apart. And since these are 20 kiloohms per gang, that's 20 kiloohms short 20 kiloohms, and I've tested this and the pot works. So I should be able to reassemble this thing, and it should be stereo. So yeah, I don't have to find one of these, which is really nice. There are some part numbers on here. This one says A20366, and then it's got a PYCO, PYCOS. I think that's what it says there. So I'm not going to bother to look that up. But yeah, so clearly I just think it's just shoddy workmanship. I mean, I didn't touch the pot. So the pot was like this from the factory. And they must do maybe just like a dual channel test rather than two tests one after another, because that's why it I mean, it passed quality control, right, with this short. So clearly their testing infrastructure. I mean, I used to work in QA. I used to do testing and stuff, and so there should have been a test to do one channel and then the other, but I bet they didn't do that, and that's probably why they didn't catch this, or they just didn't test it at all. Who knows? But anyway, I'm going to reassemble this, and hopefully this doesn't all crack when I try to get it together again, and then I will give it a proper listen. And I already put the op amps back in, so I won't have to put the originals. I won't have to take these ones out again. I'm going to keep the original op amps because might as well. It's always good to have a stock of them. So here it is, all back together. Well, all except for the case, but thought I'd show it to you before I sealed it up again for good. So I've tested it now with just my function generator and a scope, feeding it into either channel, and we've gone from 0% channel separation to 100% channel separation. So everything's still working. It still turns on and all that stuff. I redid the battery connections because they kind of got weakened from the battery moving around all the time. Getting those on was kind of annoying. I always hate soldering battery connections because you can't turn the power off, right? So if the wire flings somewhere and decides to touch something, and you could potentially blow something. So, but anyway, yeah, I think this is actually just a manufacturing problem, because I think what I noticed is when I was soldering these, I think some solder wicks in between the board and makes it to the other side, and so I think they may have been unintentional that there's solder on that side. I'm not quite sure what the deal is there. Maybe I mean they've clearly taken the solder mask off those pads, so maybe they're doing it for structural rigidity or just good measure. I don't even know if those pads are connected electrically to these ones. I never bothered to test that, and now it's not really going to be very easy because the pins are in the way. But yeah, the short's cleared. Getting this back on, this little like metal grounding strap. So the nut, basically, it grounds the shaft, basically, because the nut touches the shaft, and then this is connected to the ground plane. Getting that soldered back on was annoying because there's a lot of thermal mass in that. But yeah, so it's gone from being a broken unit to probably one of the best sounding units, at least in my opinion, with the addition of these, but basically two of the exact same op amp now. So it exceeds the spec in terms of noise and distortion from the original. How it differs in power spec, as in like total current output, I don't know. Since I drive low impedance headphones, they're just inefficient. The voltage doesn't matter as much for me as if someone is driving a couple 100 ohm pair of headphones. So if you want to do a mod, not necessarily with these op amps, but with other non-rail to rail op amps, you can do it as long as you don't have a ridiculously high impedance pair of headphones, in which case you pretty much need every volt you can get out of the power supply. So anyway, this was a little bit more than it was supposed to be, but anyway, hopefully you found that interesting, maybe learned something, and as always, thanks for watching.